Today we're going to be talking about organizational ethics for SMEs. A lot of times they feel that they don't have to be ethical in their business, and they wonder why they have to, since they're very small anyway, and a minute fraction doesn't cut so much. But then we'll get to understand all of that. I'm being joined on the program by the program coordinator of Leap Africa, Oluseyi Ojurongbe. Oluseyi, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, let's just start with understanding what business ethics is really all about, whether for a big corporation or a small one.
Okay, thank you. Ethics basically is doing the right things. So we believe any organization, regardless of its size, SME or big, international or local, we should always strive at doing the right things. That is one of the things that we train SMEs on. Those that go through our programs, our Leap, our business programs. Train them on doing the right things, imbibing the right culture, in doing the right things. So,
well, in your own meeting with such SMEs, has there been what's your impression of the way their own standard, rather? What's your impression of the standard of business ethics?
Okay, great. So over the years, I've had to interact with more than 1,000 business owners, and the impression and the mindset of everyone before the program starts, on the first of the program, is anything goes. Let's remain in business. Let's make profit. But we make it clear to them that it's not about making profit. It's about making ethical profit. And that's really important. And people always get justification for doing whatever they want to do. So even those making unethical profits always have some things to back them up and say, well, this is the environment we're operating in. This is how things work in this environment. We know how much we put into things. We know what we do before we get things. But we try to make it clear to them that it's important that we manage our businesses right. We demonstrate true leadership in our businesses by doing things right and by doing the right things. Things as simple as dishonesty in the workplace. It's a real challenge.
When you say dishonesty in the workplace, is it stealing from the management, or stealing time from the management?
Okay, great. Both examples that you gave are actually applicable. First of all, dishonest in terms of lying. It's something people just assume that, well, it's part of our day-to-day life to lie to, get things done. People tell so many lies in terms of people go on sick leave, and over 70% of those, because there was a survey that was carried out, over 70% of those that apply for sick leave or weren't at work because of sick leave were actually not sick. And things as simple as this, and these are the things that reflect in our businesses. And we say if a leader can demonstrate ethics, or a leader can be ethically right and morally upright, it's going to be difficult for you to let those that work with you imbibe it. And we tell a lot of SME owners, a lot of them have excuses. We are still very small. We need to do what we have to do to get where we want to get. And we try to explain to them it's not just about making that profit. It's not just about being in business. It's about building that culture. In the long run, it works out. People know you for what you stand for. So many people want to associate, people want to be identified with morally upright organizations. And we know them. There are some businesses, there are some organizations that we wouldn't normally approach. You and I as consumers, there are some organizations you wouldn't want to approach because of their track record in terms of, well, these guys are not ethical, these people may, So it's something very important. It's something that we encourage business owners to do.
Right. So apart from these factors that you've just mentioned, what other factors are actually responsible for the declining standard of business ethics in Nigeria?
Okay, a lot of business owners attribute it to the business climate in Nigeria, and we tell them what is wrong is wrong. If it's wrong in Nigeria, if it's wrong in Europe, if it's wrong in America, then it should be wrong here. A lie is a lie, regardless of wherever you find yourself. There's this interesting question that we pose to a lot of our business owners. We'd ask, would you run the red light at 12 midnight?
That is traffic light.
Yes, traffic light. At 12 midnight, when there's no one to arrest you, you're driving on the streets of Lagos. 95% of the time, we always get a yes. And there's always an excuse. People always have something to say. Well, what if I get robbed? What if something happens? They steal cars at that junction, They will now pose the same question. What if you find yourselves on the streets of New York, for instance, at 12 midnight, there's no one to catch you, would you run the light? You'll be like, no, there's security. So in most cases, we perform a lot of situational ethics. And that's a remedy to disaster. It drives any business towards disaster. When there's situational ethics and you say, okay, well, let's be truthful because of X, Y, Z.
But sometimes, you know, they make the decisions that they make because they feel that they won't get punished for it. So do we have a proper mechanism to ensure that, you know, business owners who actually flout the laws are punished appropriately? Do we follow through on the punishment of such offenders?
Okay, great. It's the same laws that govern you and I in Nigeria that govern business owners, and we know how it works here. You know, when the law is applicable to maybe not everyone, you know, so it's something. So that's why at Leap Africa it's a bottom-up approach. So we try to build this into business owners. We let them understand that what is right, and we should always do what is right. So you wouldn't find yourself in situations where, you know, you would have to tell so many stories, because for every time we go wrong or for every time we do something wrong, it takes more effort, it takes more time, it takes more resources for you to explain over and over. So we typically encourage them to stand for what is right. It may not come out very interesting at this point in time. Those running ethical businesses may not make as much profit as their peers that are running unethical businesses, but in the long run they are more sustainable. And that's something we've come to see over the years. Those that run ethical businesses appear to be more sustainable. They last longer. They survive from generation to generation, given what we've seen from results. Yes.
Well, there's been a very long drawn debate that the private sector is as corrupt as the public sector, and well, we have the SMEs mostly in the private sector. So do you support this argument? Yes.
Corruption is we tell business owners just kind of that. Because we typically pose a question to them that what is corruption, and people are very quick at pointing at the government, pointing at public offices, pointing at whoever it is, and we tell them what's corruption, and we tell them, we make them realize their contribution to corruption from their actions or inactions. You know, corruption in terms of, okay, I own my business, and I tell the storekeeper, for instance, get 2 reams of paper for me. On whose bill? On whose account? You know, so that's your contribution to corruption. It's also corruption. What is right, and what is wrong. Now, let's flip the tables around. If a member of your organization takes 2 reams of paper, would you go and give thanks in church on Sunday? I say, I want to thank God for my staff for stealing 2 of my reams.
Well, so the staff technically doesn't feel that he's stealing or she's stealing.
That's the thing, because there's a culture that encourages people to do what is wrong, and they assume, and they have circumstances and situations around it. Well, we've not been paid for 2 months, so there is no harm in me stealing the office UPS, or stealing office supplies, or printing my son's homework from the office printer. You know, so we tell people these things. What's the flip side? We are very quick at getting excuses and getting justification for the wrong things that we do. But once we build a culture of ethics, we understand what is right from what is wrong. What is right is right.
Could you just tell us some of those things that are unethical for a small business owner to do, whether as a staff or as a manager or owner of the business?
Okay, great. In SME development, it's very important. That's why I buttressed on dishonesty.
That's one.
Yes, there are some organizations that stand firm on honesty. They do not lie for any reason.
What if it's a necessary lie?
Well, a lie is a lie. And how long can you possibly cover that for? Someday the truth is going to catch up with it, and that is something we try to tell our business owners. There's also the issue of conflict of interest. It happens a lot when an SME owner employs someone. For instance, you are into, say, baking, you make cake, and I also have a small oven in my house and I make cake too. There's going to be a conflict of interest. If someone comes to my employer and says, oh, I need to buy this cake for X amount, I tell him this is the amount. If he can't afford it, I'm going to tell him, I can do the same cake for you at a reduced price. So there's a conflict. And we are very quick at attaching it to, you know, opportunities and chances of us being successful.
But it's unethical.
We are killing the business. We are killing our employers, you know. So it's very unethical. Now let's turn the tables around. Imagine you own the company and your staff also gives out his card, his personal card. for his own company to those that come to organization? Would he go give thanks in church that all my staff have diverted all my customers to their businesses? So things as little as that. So we try to use a bottom-up approach. Dishonesty, that's one of it. Conflict of interest, that's one of it. Stealing, people call it taking things. You know, there is a UPS we've not been using for long. It's been lying there in the office. No one uses it. I'll just pick it up. No one would know anyways. You know, it's very important that we take. So stealing too is something that. So we need to build a culture of ethics. We need to live it as business owners, as SME owners. We need to. It's something that we need to have. We need to communicate it to those that we work with. We need to communicate to all stakeholders, and we need to live it. People need to know what we stand for, and it's really important that we do that. Okay, so now looking at the quick wins, what quick wins can we, use in tackling unethical business practices here in Nigeria? Okay, great. SME owners should identify what their core values are. That's something really important. We need to understand what our core values are. What things do we stand for? What do we want to be known for? What things do we value? Is there a code of conduct? What happens to those that steal? Let there be penalties for this. Let people understand. And it's not just about having this set of values or having this conduct. You need to live it. You need to communicate it clearly. People need to understand. It's your values, your code of conduct, the vision, what you do. That's what is supposed to attract employees or attract stakeholders to your organization. Individuals that properly know themselves, if I'm someone that is not morally upright, for instance, there's some organizations that I would know from afar that I wouldn't fit in. These guys are straightforward, these guys are transparent, I wouldn't fit in. So somebody can be compromised by associating with a company that is known for practicing unethical business? Yes, one can. And on the other side too, if there's an organization that is unethical, ethical people may not fit into it. Their personalities may not fit into that sort of business. Some people can't steal, and they tell the office that, well, we steal here, and I tell people, well, I cannot steal. It's not part of me. It's not part of my values, so. Well, thank you so much, Oluseyi, for joining us on the program this morning. It was quite an interesting conversation, but I'm sure it doesn't end here. These things always happen, don't they? They do. All right. Well, I've been speaking with Oluseyi Ojurongbe. He's a program coordinator of LIP Africa, and we've been looking at organizational ethics for SMEs. Well, that's the program for today. But just before we go, I'd like to remind you that today the federal government will formally hand over the physical assets of the 14 PHCN successor companies to their new owners after a painstaking process, I might add, by the National Council of Privatization. Now, the event is expected to take place simultaneously at the headquarters of the successor companies across the country, where the Vice President will be represented by ministers and other top government officials. You can follow the progress of this handover as it goes. Just log on to our website, channelstv.com, for the very latest. But that's the program for today, the last edition for the week, but the first edition in a new month. I'm Harriet Agbini. Bye-bye.